saturate or not?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Ugh.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for doing this because it's not the easiest thing to just talk about everything going on in your life. So you've been through a lot. You had this whole life in LA. You were working harder than anyone I probably knew. And then all of a sudden it just kind of came to a halt and you moved back home. So whatever you want to share, as much as you want to share, dive into just what that was like for you.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of emotions. There was, a little bit of, okay, now I get to take a break. But then there was also like a lot of anxiety. Anxiety about moving home, anxiety about being around my parents so much after being away from home for so long, because the most I've been home before was like holidays. And I love my family, I love my parents, but we definitely, don't see eye to eye on every issue. And it's living in the Bay Area, your houses aren't huge, so there's not like a lot of escape. So there was a lot of anxiety around that, but I mean, I think there's like pros and cons to everything in life. And so I've just been trying to focus on what the pros are. And the pros are that I've gotten to really work on myself, which I didn't feel like I had time to before, or I would make excuses that I didn't have time to, because you always have time, but when you're really busy, you can be like, oh, well, my off time, I don't want to have to do anything. So now without the excuses, I've gotten to really dive in, look at me, work on some stuff for myself, work on my fitness, which I had been lacking on, get into some hobbies I've always wanted to do. So those things have been really good. I've gotten to, spend some quality time with my family who I don't get to see all the time, especially in the past because of how busy I was. Work with my little sister. She's special needs, so it's been really cool kind of seeing how to work with her, how to make things happen with her, and being able to just kind of get in tune with myself. Like nature has always been my thing, and there's a lot more nature up here than in LA. So that's been kind of cool to be able to like go hiking, be out in the forest and trees, and that makes me always feel like a lot better. So
how's the air there now? Are you able to still do that?
Actually, today is the first day that we're in good air quality.
Oh wow.
In the past,
what a time, right, where they say outside is the safest area. Just kidding, we can't breathe outside.
yeah.
It's interesting
exactly.
too, because I think we're raised to hustle, and we're taught to be the first one in, the last to leave, and work so hard, but we almost get our identity wrapped up in our job titles. So it was this really scary moment, I think, for a lot of people to suddenly be stripped of their job title and then look in the mirror and not know who that person was without the job, which, just like you said, there are pros and cons to everything. I think without, unfortunately, going through such a hard time, I don't know if we ever would have stopped, or if we ever would have seen face to face some of our demons that, like you said, we just pushed aside because we just didn't have time to deal with them. But eventually it all caught up. And do you think, God willing, that we get a vaccine and things get back to normal, hopefully within a year, do you see yourself, like, did you surprise yourself at all with maybe you always thought you wanted something and then taking a step back, or did it fuel your passion even more, or did you take a shift and maybe realize your focus could be elsewhere now?
Well, for a while now, for like the past like maybe year and a half, I've really wanted to get back into acting. That's why I moved to LA in the first place, and I kind of got on side projects, but weren't bad, because I think everything in your life happens for a reason. You're meant to go on the path you're meant to be on. But it kind of strayed me away from acting. And then about a year and a half ago, I was in a short film, and that kind of sparked that again for me and made me realize how much I loved it. And then, just before I left, I did a table read with a friend, and it really fueled me to do that. So now I'm like, now I have this time, and I have this gift of time, so I can get stuff together. I can get new headshots. I can start auditioning. I can be doing all this stuff because there's nothing but time right now. Right. So in that way, it was a gift, because there was that part of me that I had pushed away for so long, and I'd always kind of been like, we'll get back to that at some point. And this is the path I'm supposed to be on, and it'll get me back there. And so this kind of pushed me to be like, well, you have time now, and you've always said you wanted to revisit this and wanted to be part of it. So now I'm going to get that chance to be that.
It's really cool to be able to discover a side of yourself that you knew existed, but to really give it the attention it deserves, and then realize how much you love it. And that could be a whole new chapter. And I think I'm learning too that sometimes we have our ideas set on something so hardcore that we just tell ourselves it has to be that way. But sometimes we forget to ask if we even enjoy it anymore. And we're just on this cycle because we think we're supposed to. But that's why I think mental check-ins are so important, because what if we're not actually happy? What if we're doing it all for the sake of the title or for other people to think we're successful? But I do think that ultimately we see so many successful people committing suicide and awful things, and they're so unhappy. And I think it's because it's very easy to get lost in this world, especially living in LA. There's pressure from everywhere to have this image, be this idea of what you should be in LA. And I just, bullshit, really. Like, that's not reality.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it in so many ways in LA, where you have to be the certain body type, you have to be the certain face, the certain skin type, the certain hair type. And if you're not, maybe there's not as many roles for you. And so it is refreshing to see that that's starting to change. And I hope that change continues to go. And we keep continuing to get these more diverse projects and works of art out there.
I mean, they say real life represents art, but we're not doing that. And I do feel like finally the conversations have changed, where everyone's just going to be happier to see life on TV. Like, why are we creating this narrative that people are losing their minds trying to achieve this idea of perfection that just doesn't exist? It's literally computer graphics and all of that. Like, it's not real. So I am happy to, and especially when it comes to mental health, I think that's huge, just letting people know that, hey, you're not alone with these concerns and these fears that you have. No one really looks like this. But I do have a question as far as your fast pace, because what did you used to work when you were producing at AfterBuzz? What was a normal day for you like?
During quarantine or before quarantine? Before quarantine, it would differ, but I was probably getting to work around 10 a.m. and then getting off anywhere between 7 and 9.
Okay, and that was whenever I would see you. I know not everyone could see the hustle from this interview, but you were always on the go. Like, there was always a million things. For those of the listeners who don't know, you had to do all the production, you had to manage all the shows with, I don't know how many shows we always had going at once, but that's a lot of communication between a million hosts at once, and picking up when things fall down on spot and having a smile the entire time. Like, it was a very high pressure job. So I'm just thinking, you in that setting to now you being at home. I know there's still a lot going on with your siblings and being with your parents, but what were the first few days of just adjusting to this entirely new life? It almost would feel like a dream, I would think.
Well, so the first week after we shut down production for the summer, it was a lot of packing and getting stuff in order, setting up a storage unit, getting my car ready and everything like that. So I didn't get to slow down then. And then I came up to Northern California, and there was a few days where it was just kind of like, oh, I can relax. But then I feel like maybe it's just because I'm used to being busy, but after a couple of days of that, then I started just being bored with my time. And I found it harder to convince myself to do things. Like, now I'm trying to keep myself really busy. Like, I'm making lists and I'm trying to hold myself to them. And even now it's finding it hard to keep myself in that schedule. I don't know why that is. I'm trying to kind of learn that about myself, why I'm procrastinating so much or why I'm putting off certain projects. But for some reason, when you're go, it's easy to keep going. And then when you stop, it's harder to get yourself in that go mentality again.
Yeah.
Even if it's for you.
Yeah, I think you want to find that balance of being motivated and being a hustler, but at the same time You don't want to be going so fast that you're missing the moments as they happen. And that's what I kind of fell victim to. And I had to learn to slow down. And it's still a work in progress. It's definitely not easy. But what's been one of the biggest takeaways so far, that now that you've had this time and you got to work on yourself, that you're like, oh, wow, I didn't really know that about myself?
I think for me, it's how much I do crave companionship, like of people. Because while my family's great, like, and I see them, but they're my family, and a lot of my friends don't live in Northern California. I have a couple up here now, but majority of them have moved away because of cost. So that's been kind of, I think for me, because when I was back in LA and I was go, 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 and like there'd be times where I got invited to things, and because I was busy, I didn't want to go, or I was too tired to go. And now I kind of miss going out and doing things. And I was missing that towards the end in LA because it's just, LA was shut down. So everything that you could do, you couldn't do. But I didn't think that I didn't realize how much I liked going out and doing things with people, like going to a bar, going to the movies.
I
I
feel
think,
that 100%. It's not so much
yeah,
the clubs that I miss, but yeah, I think humans are supposed to connect with other people. At the end of the day, when I think about the things that make me happiest, they're not, the kind of clothes I had or materialistic things. They're about the relationships in my life. So I would say that's a good thing that you're missing that. Do you think that this experience of COVID and literally the hell that 2020 has been has helped? Do you think when you move back and you get busy again, maybe you'll stay closer with your parents than before, with your sister? How do you think that will look?
yeah. I mean, I think I definitely want to nurture the relationships in my life more, family and friends. I've always been kind of a person like wait for that someone to reach out to me. And so
Mm-hmm.
now I'm trying to break that cycle, and I'm actually trying to, every week check in on somebody else, reach out to somebody else, and
Yeah,
not
those
like
things
just
can really
rely
go
on.
a long way.
But it's easy to get stuck in that mentality of like, oh, like if someone wants to talk to me, they'll reach out to me.
Yeah, and I
But you
think
all,
we can tell ourselves stories so easily, where if you see maybe someone hanging out without you, your mind goes to the darkest places and you're like, they didn't invite me, they hate me, and like the worst possible thoughts. And I think we all do it. We've all felt left out at some point in our lives. And I don't know anyone that's like, yeah, I'm cool with it. Like, I think majority of people would say that feeling sucks. But I do think that this time of isolation, and we are starting to, the world seems to be getting over it and getting more social again. But I do really want to cherish my relationships more than I did before. And just when someone random pops into my head, to text them and check in on them, because life really is fragile. And I feel the same way as you do, where it's like I really do appreciate the people in my life. And even more so now, you realize that you've got a lot of good people around you, and that's something that you want to keep. And I think it's a balance, just like everything, of reaching out. If you feel like you're always the one, then that's probably when I'd be like, okay. But if it's a mutual effort, then I would definitely not hesitate to reach out if it had been a while since I'd talked to people, and just let people know you care about them. Especially now, you never know what they're going through.
yeah, exactly. And I think like, it was just the anniversary of 9/11, and there was all those memes going around of like, tell someone that you love them today. And I think that resonates even more right now, because if in this time, like I feel like everyone feels so alone, like we all feel together in some way because we're all stuck in the same situation, but we're also alone and secluded from everybody too.
Have you been able to see any friends at all? Because where is home compared to LA? How far is it?
It's about a 5-6 hour drive. I'm right outside of San Francisco, so about 20 minutes outside San Francisco. I have a couple friends here. There's a couple people that we're planning on getting in touch, like going grabbing coffee or lunch, social distanced.
Yeah.
But just people I hadn't talked to in a long time, that either we just fell out of friendship for whatever reasons. I have a couple people that I'm planning on going and meeting up with and seeing. There's been a couple people that I've been here with. One is actually a friend of my sister's. So I know her because her and my sister always hung out, but my sister lives in Florida now. So since I'm here and she's here, she started hanging out with me. We started doing stuff so that I've been able to connect with her. And then I do have one other friend that's up here. We go on a lot of walks and hikes together and stuff. So it's been kind of cool to reconnect with some people that I haven't seen.
And thankfully you do have a place in California still to be. So I know a lot of people had to move out of state, and that's like, I know personally I'd be devastated if I had to move back to Florida right now, just because, you know, you get like this life set in your head. But do you have a plan, or are you just enjoying not knowing for the first time and just doing the best you can?
I think for a little bit of time I was enjoying not knowing. Now I'm kind of like getting to a point where I'm like, okay, let's figure out what the plan is. With the way everything is, like I've been still applying, you know, to different places of work and trying to find something, you know, out there. Right now I'm trying to do something more remote, just one, because of the situation we're in, but also because like I said, I found that passion again for acting. So I do want to still make sure that even when I do go back to work, that I do have time for that in my life as well.
And I always like to end our conversations with resources that help people, because that is the great thing about the world today is we do have technology, we have books, you know, the real kind of words on paper that I'm just now getting into, but there's so much stuff out there that can help. And podcasts like this are just people being honest that like sometimes life sucks and you need to talk to someone, and it's fully okay to talk to someone too. Like, I think this idea that we all have to have it together is just, it's not true, you know, like we're all feeling this way, and some people are just better hiding it than others. And not to say we feel this way every day, but these emotions are definitely very real. So what's helped you personally to cope?
Well, I've reached out to do some therapy for the first time in my life. It's something I've always wanted to do, but one of those things, just like everything else, that you create these reasons why you don't have time for it. It's been said like before to me, and it's such a truth, where you know you'll spend money on clothes and you'll spend money on going out and on things you don't really 100% need, but when it comes to like your own health, mental or otherwise, we find excuses to not do that.
Spend money on the outer, not the inner.
So yes, I just started that. They did recommend an app for me because when we went through and we found out, you know, they kind of test you by anxiety and depression and stress is definitely my high point. So for me, they signed this app, Calm, which I think anybody can get. It's a meditation app. So I never was really into meditation before. There was a point in my life where I definitely thought it was kind of bullshit. But just actually having that time with yourself is helpful. Like, not because even when I was by myself before or now, you have distractions. You have your phone, you have the television, books, whatever it is. So really just having that time to focus on whatever I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, and actually feeling those feelings rather than like trying to push them away. That's been helpful. Trying to work out more has definitely helped my mood, because before you just feel so down, sluggish, and gross, and that never makes you feel good, and that just spirals you. So working out has helped me. And then honestly, just kind of knowing that, you know, there is this time. 1 second, sorry, someone's trying to call me. My sister was trying to call me. But also just like knowing that this is just like, I kind of tell myself a mantra of like, this is just for now. Don't worry. This isn't like life forever.
That's actually really good advice.
Reminding myself of those things, like, because it's easy, you know, I'm not as young as I once was, and having to start over in a lot of ways was really scary. And so now I keep just trying to remind myself, like, this is just for now. Life will go back to a more normal thing and you'll figure it out.
Yeah, no, I think as simple as that sounds, that's really good advice, because we get so lost in the panic of what's going to happen. We have no idea. But for me, what really clicked in was that we always had this illusion that we could control things, but we never really did. We could predict more of how our day was going to go when we had stability of our job and money coming in, we knew what we were going to do. But when things changed, we suddenly got this shock of like, oh my God, I have no plan. But in reality, we could never really control things. We just told ourselves we could. So I think it's all such a mental game we have to play. But when you started therapy, what were your thoughts? Was it easy for you, or was it a little difficult to open up?
It was easy for me to open up, but it was hard for me not to think that I wasn't going to be judged. Like, I know that's not what they're there for, but there's always that like fear, like that you're going to be judged for what you say, or that they're going to, like, my problems aren't that bad, so why am I here, kind of thing. Like,
Yeah. I know what you mean. And then I wish I knew who said this, but someone was like, if this is not a pain competition, like your pain is just as valid as someone else's. And yes, maybe objectively we could think that someone is going through something way worse, but it doesn't mean you can't feel what you need to feel. And I think we know ourselves the best, where like we know when, all right, pick yourself up, it could be worse. But I think giving yourself that initial cry if you need it, that glass of wine if you need it, give yourself that time and then pick yourself up, But I think when we rush through those emotions, that's when it all comes down like a waterfall. And then we stub our toe when we start crying, and we don't even know why we're so upset, but it's because we never gave ourselves the love along the way to really figure out like what the core of the problem is. But I love therapy, and I'm happy for you that you started it too. And I think that's another thing that people are afraid to talk about. And I do think it's changing, but we go to the gym, we take selfies of our body, we're all happy to like show how hot we are, but why is it so taboo to work on our mental health? It's the exact same thing as the gym for your mind, and arguably more important that we focus on that one.
Well, especially like your body will not always be there. At some point, we're all going to get older. I know technology is advancing. Maybe we'll look good still, but it's not going to look like you did at 20.
Yeah. And then
but your mind
it doesn't matter.
And your mind is just, that's always there. That's always a part of you. And I think it doesn't matter what age you are. I think, and therapy can be different for everybody. Like, I don't think if a therapist isn't right for you, you can find it in a different way. But I think if it's never too late to start, it's never too late to feel like you need help. That's something like I tell my mom all the time, because I know that she beats herself up a lot. And it's like it's also a reminder that no matter how old you get, it's okay to need help.
Yeah. And just on that note, I think that even if you get to this place where you're like, oh, I'm great, I feel good, don't beat yourself up when you fall back down, because that's life, like we're gonna go through ebbs and flows, and sometimes we'll be great and sometimes we're not. And I don't think it means we're any less than we were the day before. We're just experiencing different highs and lows, and that's what it is. And I think as long as we're true and real about what we're feeling, and thinking of ways to get through it in the best way for us, not necessarily, I made a joke about the glass of wine before, but obviously we don't want to like be destructive to ourselves in this time. We want to love ourselves enough to do what we really need to do in a healthy way to feel good again. But we are coming down short on time, but thank you so much for opening up. And I think a lot of people can relate to you going to therapy for the first time, and especially having to move. Like you look amazing. I can tell you already look happier, and I'm so excited that you're diving back into acting, and great things are to come. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, I think it's just important to remember that there's always possibility, there's always hope, there's always something for you out there. So never think that there's not enough time, that there's not enough resources. There always is.
We'll find our purpose one day or another. Well, thank you, Bree. I hope you have a good night, and we will talk soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.